We've been in Dr. Nanny's lab, and he's made us think a lot about the ecosystem. A lot. More than I ever thought about it before. So that's what I'm going to cover today. The audience that is geared towards is 7th grade life science, and then a little bit of the human impact. Standards that we'll cover, not going to go over those, but those are the ones. Some objectives. Just so that students will start to know what the non-living components and the living components are of an ecosystem, understand the energy flow through an ecosystem, and gain understanding of how various nutrients are cycled through the ecosystem, and then understand the difference between ecosystems and biological communities. Okay, so kind of a timeline, probably not real accurate because it'll take a little bit more than this, but it just kind of gives you an idea of what we're going to go over. So to engage students, the first thing that I have is I wanted to spend a few minutes of giving them a vocabulary sheet, just so that they can work together, they can decide if they know the terminology already. It also kind of gives me a way to assess what the students know already. And then I'm not going to play this because it's actually like a 30-minute long video. But it is a field trip, and then I have a worksheet that I have attached there to go ahead and have the students to actually make sure they're engaged in the video and that they have questions that they know I'm going to be asking. And it's just kind of a rainforest. It has a few different things in there that kind of gives them an idea of what that ecosystem's like. Just a way to kind of bring them in a little bit more. And then we're going to go into the explaining things, and we're going to make a self-sustaining ecosystem. I have a video attached that shows how to do it. I'm not going to play that because I actually have the directions in here. So we'll go into that. So here's a list of materials. The main thing that I want everybody to pay attention to is the lab notebook. There are specific things that I'm going to be looking for when my students turn the lab notebook in. I do have a copy of that lab report attached so that you can have it all similar throughout all of the students so that they're looking for the same things. There is some wiggle room if the students need a higher or lower accommodation. So those are basically the materials. I do have some optional materials on here, and that's going to be based on what the teacher feels like is going to be best to do, whether or not you want to look at how the soil is packed in there, or if you want more draining ability and stuff like that. So this is basically how you do it. You're going to cut the bottles. We'll use 2 bottles. Make a reservoir and a top. Don't throw any of it away because you're going to use both pieces. And then there's going to be a second bottle, and your column's actually going to look like that on the right once it's finished. And I did put in here, be sure to ask for help from an adult. Don't want kids cutting themselves with the box cutter or the scissors, or hurting themselves with the drill. So here we'll use the drill to drill a hole to put the wick in so that the water can soak up and make it up into the plant area. And then this is just a little bit more of the directions. I did put on here on the types of grasses, or the types of CCUs, the grasses, beans and peas work pretty good because they are fast growing plants, and we don't have forever to grow the plant, so I want to make sure that we kind of condense that, because I am going to ask the students after a couple weeks of sustaining their ecosystem to add a human factor. So the human factors, I have a list of different human factors, and I want the students to pick the day that they make their ecosystem, and that way I can have time to get whatever one of the human factors that they want. So we'll treat it with different fertilizer. Is that going to make a difference on how the plant grows? We could use different sand or soil, sand, just put different things in there. Maybe add a top layer of sand on top of your soil, that kind of stuff. Pesticides, that one kind of be careful with which ones you do, but road salts, acid rain, heavy metals, oil, and then from Dr. Nanny's lab, microplastics. Not really microplastics, but they will be plastics. So, and how it works, this just kind of describes how an ecosystem works, a terrarium. So it's going to be an enclosed system so that it can regenerate the oxygen in the air, the water and stuff, so that students can kind of see what's going on there, and so that it can continue to survive. And then to elaborate. So this is the part that I think is the most fun, because I'm going to give the students a choice board and give them, they have to choose a couple additional things, so 2 additional activities, and here is the choice board. Carrying capacity I like, because I feel like that a lot of our students are in rural areas, so they're used to farming, so that gives them a chance to think about, if I have this many cattle, how much grass do I need to be able to grow in order to sustain my herd? The human factor, which we are doing that one, but in case a student wants to add a second human factor, I have that on there. Invasive species, because we bring in all kinds of stuff that doesn't belong in the environment. Venn diagram for some students, just have them compare and contrast a couple different types of ecosystems. Everybody's going to do the ecosystem in a bottle. A compost, because that would be another way to help sustain the ecosystem that you're creating. A novel study, and I have a list of books for the different grade levels. And then maybe make a poster that teaches about the 6 different ecosystems. They choose 3 aquatic and 3 land ecosystems, and then they'll describe everything there. And then choose an ecosystem and a list of 3 plants and 3 animals, and then they'll have to tell me about those and how they rely on each other, the adaptations that they're needed to survive in that ecosystem. And then evaluate. So my students hate tests, but I feel like with this, having them keep their lab notebook is actually going to be the best way to evaluate and see what they understand. So that will be my evaluation. Okay, acknowledgements. So thank you, everybody.